It's the way that I had to go through so many light changes, and it's still like not completely perfect, but it's a lot better than it used to be. So I'm gonna take that as a win. Hello everyone, my name is Isis and this is Isis Says Hi. Happy New Year! I took a break last week. I hope you all are doing well. If this is your first time watching this, my name is Isis and I make a lot of research videos about topics and things that matter to me. So if you're interested in any of those things, please feel free to subscribe and like this video if you like it as you're watching it. This is like kind of my area of expertise, and so it's kind of cool to be able to talk about this stuff because I literally could go on and on. I think food policy, this is my tangent, I think food policy really does it's kind of like a sad but good job at intersecting between all of the other issues that kind of deal with poverty and homelessness. It's kind of impossible to talk about food without talking about why people may or may not be able to afford food. And it's also kind of why I liked food policy the most, because fun fact, I love policy, but I hate having to choose what kind of field of policy, and food policy kind of allows me to not have to fully choose. So we're going to be talking about the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and that in short stands for SNAP. Some people call it SNAP, some people call it EBT, which is what you get your SNAP benefits on now each month. Some people call it food stamps because that's what it was originally called. So for this, we're gonna call it SNAP. The United States Department of Agriculture actually says that SNAP is supposed to provide nutrition benefits to supplement the food budget of needy families so they can purchase healthy food and move towards self-sufficiency or the ability to survive on their own. And so while SNAP is a program that is federally funded, meaning that the national government funds it, so if we're gonna do a little governmental breakdown, the federal government is what makes the laws for the whole country. That is where the president is, where some of the federal agency is, where the United States Department of Agriculture is. Then you have your state government, you have the governor who's at the top, and then you have state senators and state house members. That's state government. And then you have local government, and that's just like your local mayor, your local city or town council or county council, just depends on how it's broken up. So SNAP is federally funded, but they do split the cost with state government, and so state government determines how a lot of the SNAP benefits will be given out and outreach and stuff like that. So the state has a bit more power in deciding who gets SNAP, and that's called eligibility. Those who are able to receive SNAP and get it monthly. While SNAP is the main way the US government prevents widespread hunger, the assumption that SNAP benefits account for somebody's whole food budget is wrong. SNAP is meant to supplement or to help with somebody's monthly food budget. SNAP benefits are designed to fill the gap between a family's available food budget and the monthly cost of the thrifty food plan, a low cost but nutritious short-term diet. The USDA has used the cost of the thrifty food plan to calculate benefits since the 1960s. The poorer the individual or family, the greater the SNAP benefits. So on a federal level, so on a national level, Congress establishes the limits of SNAP through the Farm Bill. And the Farm Bill is a 5-year piece of legislation that can include crop insurance, sometimes marketing, natural resources, energy programs, trade, and rural development initiatives. It's 5 years and you could do a lot and put a lot in there. A lot of Congress folks like to push in random things through the Farm Bill because it's such a huge bill that nobody fully pays attention to each detail. So if they can push in little things that help their constituents who are people that they're serving, that can go from people who are actually within their district to people who give money to them, or those intersections. Usually in those big bills is where a lot of Congress members try to push in things that help their constituents that are very random and unrelated. Congress uses the Farm Bill to establish policy approaches including requiring the transition from paper food stamps to delivering benefits electronically and limiting benefits to legal U.S. residents. The United States Department of Agriculture, or the USDA, Food and Nutrition Services job, which is FNS, is to turn Farm Bill language into National SNAP program rules. When Congress in their Farm Bill required EBT to be the way that SNAP benefits are delivered, FNS had to write requirements for the EBT systems so that when they do go into retailers, and that could be a grocery store, your local corner store, they had to write requirements for that, but then they also had to provide funding to states who had to enact that policy. So Congress makes the bill, the United States Department of Agriculture has to then take that bill and apply it to the program, and then the state agency has to then enact that bill. FNS has to approve the place that is accepting SNAP. They look at the agencies that are implementing and applying SNAP. They have to look over special programs. They also can have funding given to maybe state or local agencies that are helping with SNAP and food programs. They do program research. Congress makes the law. Then the federal agency then has to take this law and interpret it. That goes to maybe a specific department within that federal agency to interpret it so that it can be delivered to the states. And now the states are going to take those interpretations and enact them within their states. So state Congress, they have the power to build on the policies that the federal Congress has created. And so sometimes they'll add on extra rules for eligibility. They can also make other rules for work and job requirements or how to do outreach for SNAP. And then usually at the state level, Social or Human Services Department manage the program, and they usually apply the federal rules that are made on a federal level, so usually by the USDA, and they adjust their programs to respond to the orders from their state legislatures. So now they're taking the rules that the federal agency made, they're taking rules that state Congress made, and they have to combine them and then be able to distribute them to the people on the ground throughout the state. I always find it odd that this Human Services departments are the ones taking over for the USDA for SNAP. I'm a little confused by that still, but maybe I'm missing something. So state agencies can also allow private organizations to conduct outreach for SNAP instead of them, so it also saves them money. They can also allow private organizations to help clients enroll for SNAP, again saving money on their end, and administer disaster SNAP or DSNAP, which is enacted in case of emergencies. So it's not just natural disasters like hurricanes or tornadoes or tropical storms or stuff like that. It can also be within a global pandemic or a recession. City, county, or private social service organizations are usually the face of SNAP. They usually talk to you about SNAP. They usually maybe help you figure out if you're eligible for SNAP, maybe help you apply. They also help to kind of explain a lot of program changes. A big thing was when the SNAP benefits disappeared suddenly in about 2013. A lot of people who were on the ground had to explain why and how that happened, but they also had to explain why the folks got extra benefits for SNAP when the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, or ARRA, was enacted. And that's what we're going to talk about now. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 was passed, and that was in response to the recession that was happening. The ARRA was done to stimulate the economy and give some economic recovery. A lot of the provisions in the ARRA was the authority to increase the SNAP benefit levels. And since SNAP households spend about 97% of their benefits within the first month, the increased benefits reviewed as providing an immediate economic stimulus to the economy, which is very true. It did actually boost the economy a lot. The Recovery Act provided nearly $300 million to states for SNAP administrative expenses, and SNAP households received the increased benefits between April 1st, 2009 and October 31st, 2013. So they had increased SNAP benefits for 4 years, and then it just abruptly stopped. And a big part of that was to help pay for the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act. The benefits were supposedly supposed to slowly decrease, but they actually just abruptly ended instead. How much does SNAP cost when we're not talking about anything crazy going on. So no recession, no pandemic. So usually the federal government spends about $68 billion on SNAP and other related food assistance programs. 68 billion, was recorded in 2018. So that's how much they spent on SNAP. But 68 billion is not that much compared to the 712 billion spent on the military. And I always include the military because everybody knows we spend a lot of money on the military in the United States compared to other countries. As far as I know, we're not doing anything crazy military-esque. 92% of SNAP spending went directly to households, and then 7% went to state administrative costs, and that includes a lot of eligibility stuff, a lot of the employment and nutrition training going on for SNAP households, and anti-fraud activities, which I still don't fully get. The closest I can think of the anti-fraud activities is just printing the EBT cards. I could be very wrong, and I'm okay with that. Then less than 1% went to federal administrative costs. A lot of the administrative stuff is done on a state level. It's not really done on a federal level. The SNAP budget also includes about $2.5 billion in other food assistance programs, and that includes a block grant for food assistance, and that's given to Puerto Rico and the American Samoa, and product purchases for the Emergency Food Assistance Program, which is what's supposed to help a lot of food banks and food pantries be able to get produce and other kinds of products from farmers for a more discounted price. It helps farmers because it's a tax credit and they don't have to deliver the product, and it helps the food pantries and soup kitchens because they're able to get more product and be able to distribute it to a lot of people. Issue is that it is a federal program, and with a lot of federal programs, you do need to provide a whole bunch of paperwork, and that is just not helpful for people who are trying to give as much food to people in need as possible. It's also usually why a lot of these products are delivered to schools, because that documentation is already there. Block grants are usually the government just gives a place a whole bunch of money, says this is for food assistance, you figure out how it's going to get distributed. That's not revolving, and you're only giving it to them until the next time you give them money. And that means that a lot of the time food assistance in Puerto Rico and the American Samoa runs out. And then the SNAP budget also looks at the food distribution program on Indian reservations. So a lot of tribes also get some food from the government as well. SNAP is incredibly important and it's really helpful. A big part of that is because SNAP benefits are an entitlement program. You're automatically eligible and you probably are gonna automatically be told that you qualify. They usually send you mail or call you to let you know. Because it's automatic, it helps family be able to bridge those times of temporary unemployment or family crisis. Studies show that SNAP benefits have reduced food insecurity for a lot of households. SNAP benefits are one of the most fastest and most effective forms of economic stimulus because they help to give a nice quick boost to the economy during a recession. Low-income individuals generally spend all their income meeting daily needs, so they're always trying to balance paying for their housing, for their food, for transportation. So every single time somebody is able to move money from their food budget, which can always cost a lot, and move it towards other kind of debts that they have is really, really helpful. Moody's Analytics estimated that for every $1 increase in SNAP benefits during the 2009 Recovery Act period, it gave back about $1.70 in economic activity. So you're gaining about 70 cents back, which I feel like is pretty decent. And then SNAP is also really great because it prevents a benefit cliff. So a benefit cliff essentially is what happened in 2013 when people's benefits suddenly just dropped. What SNAP usually does is as your income increases, your SNAP benefits slowly decrease. So instead of getting that cliff where you automatically just drop off, it like slowly decreases to the point where you don't actually need it anymore. Improvements still need to be done with SNAP. Many low-income households that receive benefits still have trouble affording an adequate diet. An Institute of Medicine report identified a lot of shortcomings with the way that SNAP benefits are being given to a lot of households, to a lot of families or people. they talked about how a lot of the monthly benefits are really unrealistic and are based on the assumption that people can actually afford to go to the grocery store, keep the produce, and be able to prepare the produce, and even like assumes that people have access to grocery stores that have available produce. And so that means that a lot of people who get SNAP benefits are not actually able to spend it on healthier foods. They go for lower cost foods because they don't get enough in benefits, and they get less nutritious foods because they usually don't have time or maybe the storage to put a lot of the fresh produce, and that can badly affect their health. So FPC, or Food Policy Council members, understand how the food system works in their communities and can be reliable and trusted advisors to a lot of policymakers, whether on a local, state, or federal level. Members of Congress rely on information from these kinds of groups. They do not have a lot of staff where they can get their staffers to go on the ground and have meetings and talk to a lot of people on the ground. So they always use Food Policy Council members, or FPCs, to help kind of provide that information to them. They especially use FPCs when talking about the Farm Bill. When the Farm Bill comes up, they really lean on FPCs to give them accurate information about what they should try to put into the Farm Bill. So when we're kind of breaking down the levels of advocacy, on a federal level, federal agencies always have to have a time frame for adding comments to any program rules that they might be implementing. Any federal rule from any federal agency cannot be applied or implemented unless it goes through that comment period. And then on top of that comment period, they have to read each comment that's given to them. The federal rule can be opened up to the public for them to know and for them to maybe give comments on how this might help or harm them as a company or their populations. And FPCs can have a really big impact in that because they can put really long, thoughtful responses. I've heard of people like putting out like 10 to like 20 page comments, including graphs and stuff, and they can send in the comments or submit them online. And then when you give these long 10-page responses, that helps as well, and that stalls them from being able to enact this rule. The hope is that the administration or the agency will see this, realize there might or might not be a problem, not implement the rule and maybe change it, or if they're not going to do that, it'll at least stall it enough that maybe other things can be done in place of this rule. You can find a lot of these rules, these program rules, on the Federal Register, and I'll leave a link for it down below. A lot of these rules are very wordy and very complicated, which is why a lot of FPCs rely on national organizations who have power and ability to understand these, to translate a lot of these rules and send it to them. On a state level, a lot of FPCs can talk to state legislatures or state staffers, and that is really easy and just as important as making relationships with federal officials. And that includes folks who work in federal agencies, because people who work in federal agencies can be just as helpful as well. Many states have a lot of part-time legislatures, and a lot of state Congress members need data and information to make a lot of informed decisions on a state level. A lot of FPCs really try to push for EBT being able to be used at farmers markets because it helps boost the local economy that's there and also helps support a lot of local farmers or people who sell a lot of the produce. It still doesn't take up a lot in terms of like what people buy for SNAP, but it is really helpful. They keep trying to push as well more money given in SNAP benefits, so that way people will feel a little bit more better about going to buy produce. So say I increase the $70 amount that I give somebody on SNAP to $140, they will be way more willing to buy more produce, buy more healthier, nutritious things, because they have a little bit more room to allow that, and it wouldn't feel like a waste to them. That's it for my video. If you really want to apply for SNAP, I'm gonna leave a link down below for how to apply to SNAP in your state. Apply if you feel like you really do need that extra help for food. It comes on a card, so it's very discreet. People usually don't say much, and if they do, it's not their business. You can kick them in the shin, don't kick them in the shin. Some states have it online that you can apply for SNAP, and then you just have to do an eligibility interview, and they tell you kind of what you might need to tell them for that interview. The eligibility interviews are usually on the phone now, which is really helpful because you don't have to go in person anymore. You really can't go in person MDVSN anymore. You just have to reapply every 6 to 12 months, which is nice, and they usually call you. But if you are like a senior or you have a disability, it's every 12 to 24 months, so every year to 2 years. Yeah, that's kind of it. I'm gonna leave my sources down below. Thanks for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Don't do drugs, make good choices. I tell that to my family members all the time. Bye.